Have you ever looked at someone confident, successful, calm under pressure, and thought, I could never be like that? Here's a truth most people never admit. It's not that they're better than you. It's that they've trained their mind to act as if they already are. But what if I told you, you don't need to wait until you feel confident. You don't need more experience, a better resume, or the perfect timing. You just need one mindset shift. A Stoic philosophy so powerful, it can rewire how you show up in every area of your life. Act as if you're the best. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, fake it till you make it, stop. This isn't about pretending, it's about becoming. In today's video, I'll show you why acting like you're the best isn't arrogance. It's the fastest path to unlocking your true potential. And the best part, no one's talking about this. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn could be the confidence breakthrough you didn't know you needed. Let's get into it. Part 1. You are your own biggest obstacle. Yeah, I know that's not the most comforting thing to hear, but it's also the most freeing. Most of us spend years waiting for the right time, waiting until we feel confident enough, smart enough, ready enough. But here's the harsh truth. That perfect moment, it never comes. And most people stay stuck, not because of their circumstances, but because of their mindset. What if I told you that you are the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be? Not your lack of money, not your lack of time, not even your lack of talent. You. The way you think, the way you see yourself, the way you talk yourself out of opportunities before they even begin. And I get it, I've been there. You think, I'm not ready, I'm not the best. Someone else is already doing it better. But here's where Stoic philosophy punches that in the face. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic minds, said, we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. And how you respond starts with a decision to step up, to act as if you already are the person you're trying to become. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had an opportunity pass you by because you hesitated? Maybe it was speaking up in a meeting, starting a side project, asking someone out, posting your work online, and you told yourself, not yet. That voice inside your head? That's not reality. That's fear disguised as logic. Let me give you a personal example. A few years ago, I had a chance to pitch a client I really admired. And for 3 days, I talked myself out of it. I kept thinking, why would they choose me? I'm not big enough. I don't have the experience. Then I remembered something I read from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. So I did it. I pitched them anyway. I wrote the email, spoke like I was already the right fit, and hit send. And you know what? They said yes. Not because I was the best on paper, but because I showed up like I believed I belonged in the room. And that's what this part is all about. Choosing to believe you have something valuable to offer before the world tells you it's true. Acting as if isn't arrogance. It's not delusion. It's permission. Permission to start now, to grow into the role as you go, to stop waiting and start creating. So if there's something you've been putting off because you don't feel ready yet, this is your sign. You don't have to be the best. You just have to start thinking like someone who's on their way there. And that shift, that's where everything changes. All right. Part 2, let's redefine what being the best actually means. Because here's the thing, when most people hear the phrase, act as if you're the best, their brain immediately jumps to competition. They imagine being number one, better than everyone else, flawless, untouchable. And that right there is where most people get it wrong. Being the best isn't about being better than others. It's about setting a higher standard for yourself. It's personal. It's internal. It has nothing to do with winning trophies or beating people to the top. You want to know who really lived this truth? Marcus Aurelius. He was one of the most powerful emperors in Roman history. He literally ruled the known world. But you know what he did every morning? He wrote reminders to himself in a journal. Not to gloat, not to flex his power, but to stay grounded, stay humble, and strive to act with virtue. Even when no one was watching, he wasn't competing with others, he was competing with his own potential. Now let's bring that back to real life. Let's say you're a designer. Being the best doesn't mean winning an award or having more followers on Behance. It means delivering your best work every time, holding yourself to a standard of clarity, creativity, and care, even when the client wouldn't notice the difference. Or maybe you're a student. You're not here to be smarter than everyone else in class. You're here to push your own limits, to study, to ask better questions, to go a little deeper than you did last week. Acting like the best means saying, I hold myself to a higher standard because I know what I'm capable of. Let's not pretend this is easy. It's way more tempting to compare yourself to others, especially now on social media where everyone's life looks perfect. But here's the real power move. Instead of scrolling and feeling like you're behind, look in the mirror and ask, what would the best version of me do today? That's the real question. What would the best version of you do? In this meeting, in this relationship, with this challenge you're facing, would they skip it? Would they procrastinate? Would they half-ass it? No. They'd show up. They'd give it their all. Not because someone's watching, not because they're trying to impress anyone, but because that's who they are. Let me say that again. You don't act like the best because you've arrived. You act like the best because you're becoming. When you shift your definition of the best from status to standards, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for validation and you start living in alignment. That's how excellence is built. So next time you hear someone say, act as if you're the best, don't think ego, don't think spotlight, think personal commitment. Because in the end, your standards will take you further than anyone's approval ever could. Let's keep going. Part 3, confidence comes from action. This is where most people get it backwards. They think, once I feel confident, I'll do it. Once I believe in myself, I'll finally start. But that's not how confidence works. Confidence doesn't show up first. Action does. Confidence is not a requirement. It's a result. It's something you earn through repetition, experience, and showing up even when you're scared. Think about this. The first time you drove a car, were you confident? Probably not. Your hands were tight on the wheel, you checked the mirrors every 5 seconds, and your heart was racing. But after enough time behind the wheel, your confidence grew. Why? Because you acted first, then belief followed. And the same applies to everything else in life. Public speaking, dating, job interviews, starting a business, setting boundaries, even going to the gym. Let me give you an example. I had a friend who wanted to start a podcast. She spent months reading articles, watching tutorials, and buying gear, but never recorded a single episode. Why? Because she was waiting to feel confident first. She thought she needed more preparation, more proof she was ready. But here's the secret. She was stuck in motion, not action. One day I told her, record the first episode. You don't even have to post it, just do it. She did, and it wasn't perfect. But after 3 episodes, her voice got stronger. By episode 10, she sounded like she'd been doing it for years. Now she gets messages from people saying, I wish I could speak like you. Confidence didn't come first. Action did. And this is where the Stoics were ahead of their time. They believed that who we become is shaped by what we repeatedly do. Seneca said, we become what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. So if you want to be confident, don't wait. Start acting like someone who already is. Let's make this practical. Want to feel more confident in meetings? Speak up once every time, even if your voice shakes. Want to feel better about your body? Don't wait for motivation. Start walking every morning. Want to feel more secure socially? Start making eye contact. Start small conversations. Smile first. Your brain is watching your body. Every time you act brave, even when you're nervous, you build evidence, and that evidence stacks up. Suddenly you're not pretending anymore. You're becoming. So here's the takeaway for this part. Confidence doesn't drop from the sky. You don't wake up one morning and just feel worthy. You build it, one courageous action at a time. And every time you act as if you're already the person you want to be, you move closer to becoming them. So stop waiting to feel ready. Do something, anything, today, and let your actions pull your confidence forward. Let's keep this momentum going. Part 4. Practice creates the new you. Here's something most people don't realize. You don't become a different person overnight. You become a different person by practicing different behaviors consistently until they're no longer something you do. They become who you are. I want you to imagine this. Let's say you want to be someone who's calm under pressure. You don't just wake up one day and suddenly become Zen. You have to practice staying calm over and over again until your nervous system learns, hey, we've got this. And yeah, at first it feels like you're faking it. You might even think, who am I kidding? But here's the truth. You're not faking it, you're forming it. There's a famous quote often misattributed to Aristotle, but it still hits hard. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Think of it like this. Confidence is a muscle. Resilience is a muscle. Discipline, also a muscle. And how do you grow a muscle? You don't lift the heaviest weight once and expect results. You lift what you can again and again until what used to feel impossible becomes effortless. Let me give you a personal example. Years ago, I wanted to become someone who wakes up early. I loved the idea of morning peace, having time to journal or think, being ahead of the day. But my habits didn't match that vision at all. So I started small. I set my alarm just 15 minutes earlier. And I acted like I was already the kind of person who prioritized mornings. I prepped my coffee the night before, laid out my clothes, and built a mini routine. Did I hit snooze sometimes? Of course. Did I feel like a fraud for a while? Absolutely. But the more I practiced, the more natural it became. And eventually, I stopped saying I want to be a morning person. I just was. This same principle applies everywhere. Want to be more confident? Practice standing tall. Practice speaking clearly. Practice showing up when it's easier to stay quiet. Want to be more focused? Practice turning off distractions. Practice saying no. Practice being present. The gap between who you are and who you want to be is built with practice. The Stoics knew this. They didn't talk about success as something external. They talked about virtue, things you practice, courage, temperance, wisdom, justice. They knew you didn't just have those traits, you trained them. So if you're thinking right now, I'm not there yet, good. That means your unawareness is where practice begins. So here's your challenge. Pick one quality you want to build. Confidence, patience, discipline, calm. Then ask yourself, what does someone who already has that trait do every day? Then start doing it, little by little, quietly, consistently. And soon that act will no longer feel like acting. It'll feel like you, because that's who you've practiced yourself into becoming. Let's go deeper. Part 5, Facing Your Flaws, the Power of Self-Awareness. Look, acting as if you're the best doesn't mean pretending you don't have flaws. It actually means doing the harder thing, facing those flaws head on. Because here's a powerful truth. The most confident people aren't the ones who think they're perfect. They're the ones who fully understand where they're weak and choose to grow anyway. Let that sink in for a second. Confidence isn't blindness to your faults. It's clarity and courage. It's saying, yeah, I see the cracks and I'm still showing up. The Stoics were masters at this. They didn't run from discomfort. They leaned into it. Marcus Aurelius, arguably the most powerful man of his time, would literally write reminders to himself to stay humble, to improve, to avoid arrogance. Why? Because he knew the moment you stop seeing your weaknesses is the moment they control you. So here's a question. What's one area of your life you don't want to look at right now? That thing you keep avoiding. Maybe it's your procrastination. Maybe it's your short temper. Maybe it's your spending habits, your fear of being judged, your lack of follow-through. Whatever it is, here's what I want you to hear. It's not shameful. It's human. But it's also your responsibility to address it. Let me give you a real-world example. A friend of mine used to freeze every time she had to speak in public. She'd sweat, stutter, overthink every sentence, and for years, she avoided it. Turned down opportunities. She told herself, I'm just not a speaker. It's not my thing. But one day she got honest with herself. She realized it wasn't a lack of skill. It was a lack of self-belief and zero practice. So she joined a local Toastmasters group. She started small, 2-minute talks, then 5, then full speeches, and now she gets invited to speak at events, and she owns the stage. Her weakness didn't disappear overnight. She trained through it because she was brave enough to look at it first. So here's what this part is really about. Self-awareness is your superpower. It allows you to take your weakest points and turn them into your biggest growth areas. It puts you in the driver's seat, but you have to be honest. No more sugarcoating, no more avoiding. Look your weaknesses in the eye. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can start doing to improve this? Then do it. Messy, imperfect, maybe even awkward at first, but do it. That's what it means to act as if you're the best. Not because you're flawless, but because you're fearless when it comes to self-improvement. Remember, the best version of you, they're not perfect. They're just committed to growth. And that's the real flex. You've made it this far, so let's take it up a level. Part 6, Inspiring Others. Becoming a role model without saying a word. Here's something powerful to remember. When you act as if you're the best, not to impress but to grow, you lift the people around you too. This mindset doesn't just impact you, it has a ripple effect. And honestly, that's where the real magic happens. The Stoics called it sympathia, the idea that we are all connected and our actions affect the whole. You've probably felt this before. You walk into a room where someone's confident but not arrogant. They're calm, clear, focused. They don't talk over people. They don't need to dominate. And yet, everyone seems to respect them instantly. You feel it in their posture, their energy, their presence. That's what happens when you live aligned with your highest standard. You inspire others simply by being fully yourself. And the cool part? You don't need a platform, a huge following, or a title to do it. You lead by example, not ego. Let me give you a story. I used to work with a guy named Tom. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, he didn't try to impress anyone. But the way he carried himself, different. He always showed up on time, prepared, focused. If there was a problem, he didn't panic. He solved it. If someone needed help, he was there, without making a show of it. And people noticed, not because he was shouting about it, but because he embodied the kind of energy others wanted to match. That's what happens when you raise your own standards. You raise the room. So if you're in a leadership role, whether you're managing a team, parenting a child, or just trying to be a better friend, this part's for you. You don't have to give motivational speeches. You don't need to post daily quotes. Just live it. Show up with consistency. Choose discipline when it's easier to be lazy. Speak with intention when it's easier to be reactive. Act with integrity, even when nobody's watching. People are always watching, especially when you don't realize it. And sometimes someone's breakthrough won't come from your words. It'll come from your example. That's the beauty of living as if you're the best version of yourself. You silently give others permission to do the same. And think about how powerful that is. You're not just changing your own life. You're creating space for others to rise too. Your quiet discipline, your calm under pressure, your refusal to give up when it gets hard. All of it speaks louder than you know. So if you've ever doubted whether your growth matters, if you've wondered whether it's worth it to keep showing up when no one claps, remember this: you don't need applause to be impactful. You just need to live with purpose, and that alone becomes a light for someone else. we've come a long way. Part 7. Failure is part of the journey. Let's be real for a second. You can act as if you're the best. You can raise your standards. You can show up with discipline, courage, and clarity, and still, you will fail sometimes. And that's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing it right. Here's the truth no one talks about. Failure isn't the opposite of growth. It's part of it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Read that again. The obstacle is the way. Failure isn't something to avoid. It's something to use. Let me tell you about a guy I know, Daniel. He started a small business 3 years ago. He was passionate, prepared, and poured everything into it. But 6 months in, sales dropped. He lost money. He made mistakes. He had to shut it down. He was crushed. But instead of disappearing, he took a hard look at what went wrong. He studied every decision. He asked for feedback. He owned his part. Then he tried again. His second business, still not easy, but it worked. And now it's thriving. Not because he avoided failure, but because he learned how to fail forward. That's what Stoicism teaches us. You can't control whether you'll succeed on the first try, but you can control how you respond when you don't. You can let failure define you, or you can let it refine you. So let me ask you something personal. What's one thing you've been avoiding because you're afraid to fail? Maybe it's launching a creative project. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation. Maybe it's finally applying for that job you've been thinking about for months. Now ask yourself, what if failure wasn't the worst-case scenario, but part of the training that shapes the version of you you've been trying to become? Think about that. You learn more from falling than from floating. You gain resilience. You sharpen your strategy. You strip away what doesn't work and rebuild with intention. Failure gives you feedback that success never could. And the beautiful part, when you act as if you're the best, even in failure, you don't see it as the end. You see it as a pivot. You keep your head up, you stay committed. You remind yourself, this is not where I stop, this is where I learn. So here's your mindset shift. Stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what will I learn when I do? Because that's how the best think. They don't chase perfection, they build progress. One fall, one rise, one lesson at a time. Remember, the best don't avoid failure. They use it, they grow from it, they get back up, wiser, sharper, stronger. And so can you. So here we are at the end of this journey together. We've talked about belief, discipline, action, and failure. But more importantly, we've talked about becoming. You don't need permission, you don't need a certificate, you don't even need to feel ready. All you need is the willingness to show up every single day, as if you're already becoming the version of you that you were meant to be. And here's the beautiful truth. You don't have to be perfect to inspire others. You just have to be real. You just have to try. So whether today is your first step or your 500th, I want to thank you for being here, for listening, and most of all, for choosing growth. If this video sparked something in you, if it gave you a shift, a pause, or just a little more courage, please consider giving it a like. It helps more than you know. And if you're not already subscribed, I'd love to have you as part of this community. This is a space for people who are building, not boasting, growing, not proving, quietly showing up and becoming powerful in the process. And hey, leave a comment. Let me know what resonated with you most or what you're working on. I read one of them. Until next time, stay grounded, stay growing. And as always, act as if you're already the best.